Good. So a very warm welcome to you on behalf of AI Policy Labs to our podcast series on a very important topic today, AI and Sustainable Development Goal number 4. I am Luigi Fiora, Research Associate at the Labs, and I'm currently based in Turin. AI Policy Labs is a global public policy think tank dedicated to exploring the role of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies in addressing global challenges, taking into account the challenges posed by technology. To introduce our expert, today we have with us Professor Dominik Boesl, Professor of Digital Sciences and Automation at the University of Bayern. Thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So, in your view, is AI acting as an enabler or rather as an inhibitor for achieving SDG number 4 in education?
Well, that again is one of those very broad questions. I think it has inhibitive and also enabling capabilities, because if you look into education, I think AI is really helping with to some extent. First of all, it is a very great topic for education itself, to be analyzed, to be taught, to understand, for example, how we understand the world. The second thing is it is a big enabler for many other technologies and capabilities. For example, robotics without artificial intelligence wouldn't be possible. So in order to do that, I think we have to teach this as early as possible, at least a basic understanding. The third aspect is that, well, you know, in education, I think it's important to spark this pleasure and this passion for science and technology. And the chance that artificial intelligence is bringing there is that it is, first of all, a very graspable topic. So, okay, before my robot could only follow a line, now I can make it autonomous, and even in a, for example, classroom setting. So I'm thinking of STEM-D education and all that. So I think it can be an enabling factor. Whereas the problem with artificial intelligence always is directly, it's not really affecting that much, at least in education, but indirectly, the indirect effects are great. The inhibitors maybe is that a lot of the things that we currently still have to do by hand and will be replaced by tools, you know, and it can also endanger to a certain aspect, so the educational ecosystem, because if you look at what GPT-3 is currently capable of, so this text synthesis tool, well, how are you going to deal with semi or fully auto-generated test papers that are handed in, or classroom reports and all these things? I think the problem of plagiarism and authenticity in the work of students and in education itself, that will be a completely different thing. In this direction, it's also important to note that, well, the whole aspect of fake news, auto-generated content. So how can we rely that when students and when people that are learning and looking for education, that they find the right sources, that those sources are of good quality, and that humans, that we are capable of seeing if this content has been human-made, what the quality of that content is, or if it might have been auto-generated. So again, it's not the direct impact of artificial intelligence, but the indirect impacts that follow out of these technologies. And well, you could come up with many more, but I think those were 3 pros and 3 cons maybe. I think it really depends on where you look in, also which age group, which education purpose you're looking for. So like, well, scholar education, or maybe extracurricular education and so on. So again, some of the tools might be good, but some of the effects also might be a more disabling factor.
So as you know, one of the main criteria for determining the success of SDG number 4 is the equal access for all students to educational services. So would investments in the field of AI further increase the comparative disadvantages of those communities that are either too poor or too remote to be able to gain full access to all these wonderful benefits of AI, such as lacking an internet connection or sufficient power or...
Yeah, for sure. The problem of the digital divide is also looming over SDG 4, and also especially over the accessibility and equality of education. On the other hand, there are some research projects that deal in automating classrooms, automating auto grading of test papers, so that, for example, like 70 or 80% of basic training and basic education could be automated, which then might be even an enabling factor to grant access for weaker communities or more distant communities. On the other hand, sure, the baseline is, first of all, you need access to those technologies. They have to be at least acceptably priced, or preferably for free. I also do believe in open access, and so these technologies and also the content has to be open sourced, ideally. And this is still a large inhibiting factor, because a lot of money is flowing into the development and also into the running of these tools. So yes, the companies are mostly trying to sell that, and this might still further the digital divide. Whereas I think if we find the right policies and the right way to do this, the right levers to do the funding for that, it could again also be a chance, I think.
So you brought up a very interesting point I want to talk about. Do you think it's realistic or feasible that we could see some kind of return to the earlier days of internet development, such as mainly free and mainly, made by people like yourself, university professors, rather than people working for enterprises? Like, as far as I can tell, a lot of AI development currently is controlled by either research labs or private companies. So do you see some kind of space for a more public-led development?
Two hearts in my chest, so on one hand, yes, sure, from a personal point of view, and also I have two little children, so 1.5 and three, approximately 3.5. If I think of their future, my belief is, and also as a scientist, science should be free, the findings should be free, knowledge should be free, all that. So I'm a heavy supporter of open access and all these ideas. On the other hand, yes, I do see that currently, unfortunately, in AI, the invests are huge. So OpenAI Foundation, for example, with GPT-3, they put a lot of money in, they need a lot of resources, and they have to find ways how to monetize that. So in order to stay operating, at least that's what they're saying themselves. I would love to see that this is all going public and open source. Whereas I think the cutting edge research and the really expensive things, they are, unfortunately, I think we're in this self-emphasizing circle that it's more and more global companies, large companies that are driving that. That said, having a lot of friends in the industry, so I have a lot of friends that work for those companies, I know that at least everybody has at least one or even two or several projects where they try to distribute what is legally possible of their knowledge and of their capabilities to the community. And I think, as bad as the current situation might be, what I do see is, because people have more time, they're limited to their home office, and they're looking for purpose. I see a lot of scientists starting or contributing to such NGO projects or projects where they're open sourcing knowledge, where they're starting recording teaching videos, where they're open sourcing their courseware and all these things. And I think this is a good direction, and we have to keep this. We shouldn't shut it down as soon as hopefully this crisis is over soon. But so I think this is something we should keep. So yeah, but in order to really sum it up, I would love to see this. Yes, I see a tendency towards that, at least in academia. I hope that either we can put enough pressure on those companies, or the people from the inside are putting pressure or are building up that pressure, so that this is also going to be supported by the big companies. Yes.
So how can we assure that the future educators in a sector that's going to be so vital in education are representative of the population? So specifically, I guess the question is about, first of all, what do you think of the fact that the development is currently being led by Northwestern countries more broadly? And second of all, what do you think of the fact that less than 20% of the developers, and that includes yourself and your colleagues, researchers, are women? And how could that be addressed?
I'm a huge fan and supporter of diversity. So in all my research projects, and I currently run a very big Delphi study, I always try to look at gender diversity, geographical diversity, so to include from all the geozones at least one researcher if possible, and also age diversity, which is something that we shouldn't underestimate. And then, yeah, well, okay, societal diversity, you know, all the different stakeholder groups, which is not always possible, but at least we have to try. Well, the answer, as always, also with STEM education, is start early. First of all, treat them equally, start early, and don't fall into these stereotypes. So, well, I think we also can start small. I with my children, for example, a boy and a girl, I treat them completely the same as much as possible, and they have the same toys, they have the same opportunities. It's not pink for the girl and blue for the boy. Actually, lately he picked pink toys because he loves it when his sister plays with them. And I think we should encourage stuff like that and not fall into these stereotypes. That's where we start small. On an infrastructural level and on a policy level, well, I just think that this change of mind has to happen, and whatever helps to facilitate this is a good start. Um, do I believe in hard regulation? So, like that you are forced to do this? Not really, because I think this is something that then people are just doing because they're forced to, and maybe there's also studies that show that then they build up more offense against it. But unfortunately, I think in the beginning we will also have to work with those means until really the mindset changes. Luckily, with a lot of my students, for example, I see that the mindset is slowly changing, but sometimes I'm really devastated. So lately I had a female student that really fell into that stereotype. Oh well, I don't bother. I'm a girl. I will never understand computer science. And I was so sad about that because she knew it and she could do it. And then afterwards, well, actually, when we started talking, and I asked her, "Hey, do you really believe that?" You know. And then after a while, she really accepted with a little bit encouragement that she could actually deliver. So I think it starts small. We all can do our part, and it's absolutely vital. And I would love to see more female researchers and more diverse research going on in that field. And yeah, otherwise we're losing so much, especially with AI. You know, this intrinsic bias that comes into it and all that. We have to eliminate this as early as possible.
So concretely speaking, do you think universities should, for example, encourage professors to have gender parity amongst their PhD candidates, for example, or should there be scholarships or more, let's say, direct ways to encourage female students?
Well, yes, as I said, every means that helps, you know. But on the other hand, what shouldn't happen, and this is always the danger, is that you start um, picking that you start picking candidates by some external factors and not by their capabilities. But really to encourage this and to really also maybe suggest this to young women and say like, hey, listen, why don't you want to stay with me at my chair, and why don't you want to do a PhD? I think you really are contributing to the field. And I see this happening more and more, and also encourage female leaders to become this nuclei, these multiplicators that really then also are the north stars for other young women or women in general to really follow their path. And yes, I do think that we have to at least pay attention on this. Well,
So
and sorry if I interject that. I know at least in Germany that with a lot of the current chairs that are vacant, there is definitely a policy that they're looking into that to try at least to get to this gender parity. And so yeah, I'm a huge supporter.
the collection, use, and potential abuse of the massive amounts of data that are needed for AI to, well, to learn and to properly function may expose people to risks that they were not even aware existed. What steps can be taken to mitigate these risks?
Well, first of all, transparency and information. I think we have to media education and all this awareness has to start also as early as possible. Then I think what a really huge problem is that these end user license agreements are, first of all, so long and so complicated that people cannot understand them. I know that there are efforts undergoing so that we make them as easy as possible. Then maybe do really things like, grading systems or traffic lights, or so that you say like, hey, listen, careful, this is an orange application. A lot of your data is shared. And then not lastly, but still a very good idea, I think, is there are these concepts, because currently we're giving away our data for free, and then we're receiving services presumably free that are not really free. So this idea that maybe these services shouldn't be free, but I at least trade in my data. And if I don't want to trade in all my data, then maybe I have to pay something for the service, but at least it makes it more transparent where the value is generated. I think these are very good initiatives. Not to say the least, I also do think, well, in an ideal world, companies would engage in this more and would work more transparently. I fear this is currently not going to happen. So we need at least either external pressure, so from the general public, from the user, from the customers, or worst case, some sort of regulation. I would love, again, always, I'm a fan of self-regulation. If there is a means that we can enforce this out of itself, great. Do I believe that in all cases this will be possible? No, unfortunately not. And in Germany we're always very lucky because we have very strict laws regarding this. And what I really see is very, very difficult. And also when I talk with my students, then they usually tell me, oh, why bother? Yeah, well, it's just data. Why shouldn't they know about it? And I think that is actually where it starts. And we have to have this discussion. We have to show them what can go wrong if somebody has too much data. And so, yeah, education, worst case regulation, and transparency.
Good. So, talking about regulation, what do you think of the current efforts being made in many countries, but mostly, well, prominently in the EU, for data localization? That is, for preventing data of citizens to be exported in countries where they deem there is not sufficient protection. Because an issue that has been brought up by many researchers we did a podcast with is the fact that that could hamper research. It would penalize research in those countries that would not have the same access to data as other countries.
Yeah, that surely is one important aspect. And the second thing is, well, feasibility. Storing the data is okay. That is one aspect. But some of those efforts really say, yeah, data shouldn't be transmitted and so on. I just look at it from a feasibility point of view. And if I look at it, I used to work in industry and now did the switch to academia, but also in academia, many of my colleagues before the crisis were very cosmopolite. We were traveling a lot, we were working from everywhere in the world. And if I now think that my data should not be freely transmitted and roam with me, sometimes just from a practical point of view, I see some limitations to that, because at least when I want to access my data, I have to transmit it to, I don't know, Asia, Africa, or the US. And at least temporarily, it will leave the boundaries of that country. So then somebody can gain access. But those technicalities aside, I think it would be much better if we could ensure a minimum limit of data privacy and data safety all around the globe. And I know this is a very idealistic goal, but that would be much more feasible, I think, than shooting for data may not leave Germany or Europe. And with the internet being an interconnected medium and even more services working globally, I just doubt that this is even technically fully feasible. And I know that there is a lot of complaint regarding this. And yeah, surely access to data, working with data, all your business models that are based on data, even if you're respecting data privacy, and well, the small example you're currently having is, maybe these cookie policies where you now have to always explicitly accept the cookies, and that what data is stored. Within 2 or 3 weeks, it changed. Now people are just clicking, yeah, accept all, accept all, accept all. And in the end, there are even studies that are showing that they're now giving away more of their data than they did before. And now they even allow the data to be used, explicitly allow that. And I think this one really, to some extent, backfired actually. And so, yeah, I'm
You
very
mean the
skeptical that this.
You mean the GDPR backfired in this?
Yeah, not the GDPR itself, but these cookie regulations, so that cookies have to be explicitly accepted when you visit a website. The idea to make it transparent what of your data is used is great, but I think everybody knows from personal experience, if you just want to quickly look for that recipe or just want to look at this news article, you just click, yeah, sure, okay, click, just go away. And again, we ended up with something that was well intended, but in the execution is not really helpful.
Right. Thank you very much for your participation in this interview.
Thank you very much, and I hope I could help with some ideas.
Yeah, definitely. I will send you the link when we do publish the interview.
And so are we over already because you're still recording, or is
yeah, sure. I mean I'm just gonna